So I recently took a trip to Mexico City, and I heard so many great things from people who have been there about Mexico City that I was super excited to go. Now, I wasn't able to find anyone to travel with me, so I went to Mexico City by myself, and as the trip got closer, a lot of people started telling me horror stories and giving me warnings about traveling to Mexico City as a solo female. So today I'm going to share with you my experiences and some of the things I learned about the safety of Mexico City as a solo female traveler. Probably the most important thing you can do before traveling somewhere to feel safe when traveling by yourself is to do research about that place before you go. Now, you can ask friends who have been there about safety. You can go on message boards and Facebook groups and get a lot of useful information from people who've actually traveled to where you're going. And one of the best resources I know of for getting information about safety before I travel is to use the U.S. State Department Travel Advisory website. This website is really great because you can go there and you can search the country you're going to and see what the threat level is. They have a threat level that goes from like 1 to 4, 1 being the safest, 4 being the most dangerous. And the very interesting thing is if you look for Mexico on this list, it's at a threat level of 2, which means exercise extreme caution, which sounds really scary, but you can see other countries that have this threat level include the UK and Italy, which you may not consider to be as dangerous as Mexico. And this same website has a map you can look at that shows you a better distribution throughout Mexico of where is safe and where is less safe, because there are areas of Mexico that are far less safe than Mexico City. You can see the area of Mexico City looks pretty safe, but if you go a little further north to Teotihuacán, where the pyramids are, you can see it goes into a more dangerous area. And in fact, during my research, I learned that it can be a little dangerous on the road to Teotihuacán. So for me, the scariest part of this entire trip to Mexico was the bus ride to Teotihuacán. Not only do you pass by some sketchy areas according to the map of the U.S. travel warning site, but also I had heard stories of people getting on partway from Mexico City to Teotihuacán onto the bus and robbing you. And I was under the impression that it was a straight shot from Mexico City here, but there were actually numerous stops along the way. And at one of the first ones, someone got on the bus and took pictures of all our faces with a pretty nice camera, nicer than the one I have, and lingered on my face longer. So I'm like, oh man, I'm so screwed. They're gonna take all my camera equipment and all my phone, and I'm gonna be sort of stuck in this country. But no, everything turned out fine. It was actually a quick trip. Someone got on trying to sell food, and I would have bought some if I wasn't a little nervous about the whole thing. For Mexico City itself, I relied on Facebook groups and experience of my friends to see how safe certain areas are and to plan ahead. And it seems like the thing I kept hearing over and over about Mexico City is that because it's so densely populated, the main thing that you have to look out for is crime, particularly pickpocketing. So it's pretty crazy with people. There's a performance behind me, and there's some sort of tent set up over here. Lots of activity. And I actually found my Airbnb host to be a good resource for this kind of information. For example, I asked my Airbnb host about taking public transportation from the airport, and he recommended I take an Uber because they're very cheap. They're about $5 from the airport to the Airbnb. He also told me about friends' experiences on the metro where it gets very crowded and that some of them got their phones stolen and they got pickpocketed when they're on the subway. So I did end up using the metro when it was more convenient, and I mixed that in with using Ubers when things were further away or harder to get to by metro. But I was extra cautious about keeping a hand on my purse when I was on the metro, and I didn't take my phone out unnecessarily to avoid getting that stolen. So one of the things I was warned about when coming to Mexico City was taking the metro. They said that it's not that safe, and when they say it's not safe, I don't think there's any violent crime. I think there's a lot of like pickpocketing and pretty much that. And the subway here in Mexico City is not glamorous. It's very crowded, but it's the second largest in terms of area covered in the world, second only to New York City, and it's very cost effective, only about 25 cents per ride. Another thing I learned about the metro sort of by accident is that they have women-only cars at the end of the platform, which is another level of safety for anyone who's a solo female traveler. Another resource I found for information about Mexico City was actually my Uber driver. So on my drive from the airport to my Airbnb, I asked him about the safety of the neighborhood I was staying in, and he recommended that I don't go out after dark, and he pointed out emergency call buttons in that area that you could push if you run into trouble, which was really great. One of the best things about traveling is getting to meet new people and learn about local culture, and you can't do that without talking to strangers. But I think it's very important as a solo female to avoid sharing too many intimate details, people you don't know very well, especially with men. I don't like to tell people I'm traveling by myself if I don't have to, and if that means lying about having friends around or meeting with friends, I think that's more important than sharing that you're alone. Now, there are exceptions to this. If you meet people who you think you can really trust, then it's okay to become really close friends. I definitely made a few friends on this trip. I met a mother and a son that I ended up spending a day with in Xochimilco, and we had a great time, and I felt very comfortable with them. But they were one of the few people in Mexico who knew that I was a solo female traveler. So I did the best thing ever. I met Minnie and Jason. It's Jason's birthday. I always take precautions when I'm traveling solo, no matter where I go to. For example, I like to go to bed early and wake up early when I'm traveling solo, because then I avoid being out after dark. And another nice thing about this is that you go to tourist attractions more early and you avoid tourists, which is a win-win. And if I do have to be out at night, I usually take like an Uber to get home just to feel that extra amount of security. I also keep my extra valuables like my phone and my camera and my credit cards in a more secure purse that has locking zippers and a slash-proof strap on it. And if I'm in a crowded area or I feel less secure, I'll keep a hand on my bag just so I know I'm less likely to get pickpocketed, because that would be very inconvenient when I'm traveling by myself. Another thing I do when traveling solo to feel a little more safe is share my plans for the day and for the whole trip with my friends and loved ones, just so they'll know where I am, and I'll have that extra security of someone keeping an eye on me even if they're not close by. So after everything is said and done, I think my fears about safety in Mexico City were very overblown. Every person I met in Mexico City was warm and kind and helpful. I had a person tap me on the shoulder when I was on the subway to show me that there was an empty seat that I should sit in. And I had experiences where I talked to people where everyone seemed just really good-hearted. I think my fears about being robbed or taken advantage of only account for a very small, less than a fraction of a percent of people in Mexico City. So I think a little bit of fear is good so that you're on alert and careful, but you shouldn't let your fear about safety prevent you from enjoying everything that your travels have to offer. I have a lot of really great experiences to share with you in the weeks to come in my new videos about Mexico City and the areas around. So if you want to see that, please hit subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are available. Until next time, bye! Fixing to fly to Mexico City, and I'm super excited, but I wanted to show you this cool little travel hack. If you ever have an aisle seat and you want to lift the armrest, there's usually a button below the seat